What's going on, guys? Welcome in. Get started just shortly or so. Let everyone trickle in real quick who wants to be here, and we will get started. Today was quite the interesting day, I will say. Definitely one of the wildest days that I've seen in, I want to say, in a minute. Actually, I kind of felt like we actually had a Fed day today. That was actually how it felt, where we usually have that volatility, but this was just pretty gnarly. Kind of just jumping into things then, as I guess some will probably trickle in here just shortly. But we had the nice little gap down. I came on live yesterday and I was actually expecting a little bit of the reverse action that we saw today. I was expecting the gap up overnight, in which they would flush us and see a solid trend day towards the downside. They gave us basically the opposite. They gapped us down, and then we basically gave us a trend day to the upside. So I guess that was a beautiful, nice reversal in a sense. But that was just beautiful textbook kind of maneuver in which that entire uptrend that you had from that intraday bottom was just a beautiful move into resistance as you see it right now. Um, and that was kind of the thing that I actually was looking at once I was actually starting to form that bottom trend line is where were we actually going to potentially go to stretch out towards, and that's where I was actually looking at towards our prior little downtrend resistance, if you want to say. And that's how I was able to pretty much determine going up towards 380. You see the little descending, broadening wedge action between the two green lines is basically what we formed. But what's more interesting about the end of the day here is that we actually end up forming a nice little double top action. You see in the little pink highlight, you have a nice little double top action right there. The yellow orange line kind of signifies your neckline that you have, and then you also have what would be one. It'd be one towards your stretch. This is where we ended up breaking out. You see, you had the flush at this 374 low mark, and then you had the breakout. So that's just a support level that I kind of have indicated there. But what I actually wanted to throw in here was basically how this formation is going to play out potentially. That's kind of the thing that I actually wanted to just throw out there. If I kind of highlight and kind of blow up this image of this pattern and you look at it side by side, you have your first leg, you have your first top, you hit the neckline, now you have your second top, and then you broke down just below the neckline. As you see, we didn't stretch all the way down to the left side of where this bottom is that we had the intraday bottom at that 372 half. No, we stopped shy of it, maybe about halfway of it, and then we ended up retesting the neckline at this 378 mark. So I'm gonna look to pretty much see 378 is likely gonna be that stop out here come tomorrow morning. If we break north of 378 tomorrow, then it's likely that it's gonna invalidate the pattern. But I would anticipate that we already got the retest here into the close. You saw that gnarly candle that we got with the last 10 minutes there, side by side. And I would expect to either get the gap down or we consolidate here overnight and we see a fluid downtrend pretty much through the entire day tomorrow. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at in terms of this. This actually measures out down towards 370. If we overshoot, then I have us coming down towards 368. That's basically as simple as I can put it. 370 and 368 is my targets to the downside. 370 is pretty much my conservative one. If we overshoot, then 368 would be that potential overshoot to the downside. If we even have more of a meltdown, potentially if we have a gnarly gap down, would be that case, then we can even stretch down towards 367 low, which is roughly around 367.36 to the downside. All right. So that's pretty much my three downside targets. I gave you my invalidation level in terms of where this double top will pretty much invalidate. And that's pretty much looking over 378 and especially breaking over 381. All right. But other than that, this was just a beautiful move that we had. Those of you that are pretty much day traders, I think I would assume that you had an early day. By the way, what's going on, guys? Sid's Lobo, Randy, Transitory, Esteco, what's going on, guys? VIX is curling up on the scholastic time frame. I will actually get to the VIX here in just a quick sec, just in terms of what I was looking at for the VIX, Sid. So I'll get to that in just a quick second. I also do want to look at something else. We do have Micron earnings as well that I'm assuming probably just dropped. That sounds like the only explanation for SPY being down about $1 here. Is probably the semis being taken down by Micron. That's my only explanation right now, unless it's really volatility that's kicked into gear after hours. But I assume Micron just dragged all the entire semis down with it. But I'll take a look at that as well. But so you guys know, again, pretty much watching 378 will likely be my validation here tomorrow. I did swing some puts overnight, so we'll see how that plays out. But I think once I end up getting down towards my 372 target, which pretty much matches our low of the day here today, then I will likely end up locking in most, if not all, of my profits, and I'm not going to potentially risk it trying to shoot for that 370, 368 target to the downside. So that's what I'm pretty much planning on doing for tomorrow. But the pattern just played out beautifully. And those of you that have actually been on my live repeatedly, you actually know that this descending running wedge is actually probably one of my most favorite patterns. But it's usually to the upside. And once you are able to pretty much find out that downtrend support level, you see that rip that we had today. That's usually just as powerful on any particular ticker once you are able to pretty much determine this pattern in formation. So that was pretty much explained that. Now, I would have been bullish here going into tomorrow had the case that we didn't have this double top formation inside of the broadening wedge. Because typically this is a bullish pattern in which you end up breaking the downtrend resistance and you would see this continue to push in reversal basically back to the upside. But the fact that you have a double top inside of the descending broadening wedge, that's what makes me say that we're likely going to end up continuing this downtrend, and we should see further downside going into tomorrow. All right. So that's the SPY real quick. I want to take a quick glance at Micron real quick, and as I expected, yeah, it is down about $2 and some change. So roughly down about 4% here after hours. Now, I would say let's take a peep actually at the weekly. Let's see the weekly on this. And I know this thing is broken down disgustingly. You had a nice little double top action on Micron here as well off of the weekly. You broke that neckline here at that 67.5, and obviously you see you're basically getting the continuation of the downside here on the back end of this earnings. Now, where would I particularly look to find some decent support is basically retesting what would have been your high previously. And you're kind of closing into that PT as I see after hours here. But I would expect to find some decent support here at this 49. I want to say call it 50 even. In which case, if we hold this near $53 mark, you could have some room to play this $3 downside here tomorrow. But I would particularly anticipate that we hold this $50 mark. That was basically your high that you put in from November of 2017. And if you also notice, that was your breakout point at that $50 mark that started this entire rip basically from November of 2020. So that's the level I would expect to pretty much find some decent support, whether it be short term, more so to say. I would expect to find that bounce at the $50 mark, and that'll be where either if you already gap down to $50 tomorrow, maybe you have the opportunity to play the upside on that. But if you end up holding around this $53 level, then you may have about a $3 downside potentially tomorrow on the way, especially if the market aids that in the downtrend that we're pretty much expecting to continue tomorrow. All right, so that's Micron. Just taking a glance real quick, see how much it's affected AMD. Down about a half a cent, basically half a dollar almost. And let me take a Nvidia. Nvidia, I know it's had some pretty gnarly weakness, but it's holding up relatively alright. So that's pretty much semis. The other thing I want to take a look at on what Sid actually commented about was looking at the VIX. And I was actually just looking at a smaller time frame. I actually commented pretty much in the Doji channel about what I was actually looking at once we started to get towards that bottom where we saw that gnarly reversal. We were basically sitting right up here at the top, right around that morning here, close enough to around 10 a.m. Eastern this morning. We were flirting right around that $30 high, in which you see that you have your uptrend resistance. That's when I was a little bit skeptic about pressing into the lows. And those of you that heard me on live, we didn't get the bounce that I expected at the open, which I was pretty much trying to say that I want to look for the bounce to get a better short opportunity. No, we got the gap down. We had the bounce pre-market off of the morning data, but we just saw literally a continuation of the flush right out the gate. And that's where I did not want to chase into the open there, was tracing the breaking that opening range low. That's what I did not feel comfortable about. I wanted to play for the bounce and then short the bounce whenever that decided to come today. But once I ended up seeing the VIX right into that uptrend resistance at that $30 mark, that's where I got skeptic. I'm like, all right, now the bounce should end up coming, but I was expecting it to fall shorter than what it anticipated. Where you see it got up to like about 380 and change on SPY. I was expecting us to basically get up towards about 3. I think it was around roughly around 376 and some change when I said it on live. But we saw once I was able to identify the pattern that we had, that descending broadening wedge, that's when I was able to pretty much determine the fact that we were basically gonna have VIX go straight down towards support, and you see you got the bounce right off support. You broke down, but you found buyers where I expected. I already had this highlighted. I expected this to basically be your demand zone right around this 28 low, and as you see, you got that breakdown on SPY right into the end of the day as you got the bounce on VIX. So I'm gonna look to see if we end up reclaiming. Level that I want to see the VIX reclaim is gonna be over that $29 mark, 29.05 to be specific. We get a break over that 29.05, and what's really gonna likely overshoot to the downside here for SPY is gonna be the VIX basically reclaiming over the $30 mark. So that's what particularly what I have on watch. We break over 29.05, reclaim that basically, and the breakout is actually over the $30 mark for the VIX, in which SPY is going to continue its meltdown. All right. So that's particularly what I was watching with the VIX today. Other than that, someone mentioned IBM and Merck. All right, let's take a peek. Let me catch up on comments. Do I think RDBX broke their downtrend? Transitory. Let me take a peep real quick for you on RDBX. I haven't looked at this one in a minute. Looks like it's still a little bit more relatively in that downtrend. It hasn't broken just quite yet, if I want to be honest with you. You still have a well-defined downtrend, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think you've broken it just yet. Now, the level that I would say that you particularly want to see Redbox basically reclaim here, if I kind of just clear that out, you want to see Redbox get back over this 7.67 mark would be where I would say that's the level that you want to end up reclaiming over. You see that you had the breakdown, you had the retest, you flushed right under it, but you ended up retesting that same level, that $7.67 mark, as resistance. Tried to pop over, you got the fake out, and then you broke back down. So $7.67 would be where I would particularly look for Redbox to reclaim, and that's where I would want to see it for a breakout potentially. In which case, you're looking for your convincing breakout over the 1820 would be where I would say that you have your full-on breakout potentially to fill what I want to say is a little bit of a ghost week here from the 30th. All right, actually from this morning rather. So you should end up getting over that 1820 mark. Once you get over the 1820 mark, then you can fill this wick up towards $8.65. All right. But again, bigger level is $7.67. That's where you're looking at for your upside to pretty much begin. Let's see. Says I played Tesla on both sides. Nice 20 to 25% on both sides. You had an opportunity to play Tesla. Usually Tesla always gives you an opportunity. I wouldn't say though that Tesla actually had the most ideal opportunity today. I don't think the range was very convincing. More so, I will say though tomorrow I think it's actually setting up for a better day on Tesla. More so, the only thing I'm hoping though is that the move doesn't happen before the opening bell on Tesla. But if Tesla doesn't move much pre-market, I think that's one that's going to be pretty high on watch here tomorrow, especially if the market is bleeding out as I anticipate. All right, so that's one that I will keep an eye on again tomorrow. Aman, you said Merck. Let me take a peep at Merck for you. Let's see if we probably get out to the daily, and I see that I have something highlighted. I don't know exactly why that may be, but it looks like we had a little bit of a channeling formation is why I had this highlighted, pretty much pivoting off of supports that we had and recent resistance. I actually see that we had a little bit of a fake out right into our resistance around that $95 mark. We pulled back. Now here's where you're actually looking for basically you're halfway back of this little ascending channel action on mark. You're gonna look to see if you can defend this $90 level. 90.12 would be that exact spot if you want to get pretty much precise. But 90.12 would be where you want to see Mark defend this halfway back on this ascending channel, and that's where you're gonna look for the reversal right back to the upside, in which you're gonna potentially look for a move from that $91 level. You could play this up towards 96, back up to the resistance of this ascending channel. So 91 needs to hold. You get the hold on 91 on the 90 level here, and then you get the reversal, and you can play that about a $6 move back up to the upside. All right. Let's see. The other one you mentioned was IBM, and I'm pretty sure I've looked at IBM before. I don't know if I still have it charted. I looked at it probably a very long time ago. All right, no, I don't. I don't have it charted anymore. Not anymore. But IBM was actually one. I know it was actually beautiful. Was it on the monthly? Probably. I think it was on the monthly that it looked beautiful. Yeah, the monthly actually looked really, really just sexy right here. You had a beautiful downtrend break that you can see, very convincing downtrend break. If I literally just highlight it real quick for you, you can see the downtrend break that you had, in which you're basically kind of getting a little bit of a high and tight kind of breakout here off of the monthly chart, in which it looks like it's kind of just waiting for the market to find a little bit of a more of a bottom. But your overall breakout on IBM off of the monthly chart, keep in mind this is a monthly chart, is that you want to see IBM break over 146. You get the breakout over 146, and then I think you could safely target your initial first target should be up towards 155. So this is one I do like this one a lot. I think it's just waiting on a little bit more of the market to curl for a bottom, maybe to be found. But you break over 146, 155 will be my potential target, in which obviously you want to give yourself time on that, given it's about a near $9 move from 146 to 155. You want to give yourself time on that play. Maybe get yourself a call debit spread for maybe a few weeks out on that. But that's a beautiful one. I do like that chart. Let me take a look. What else you guys mentioned about? Keviasim, can I do Tesla? I'll take a peep at Tesla real quick. I don't think I had too much charting on Tesla today, actually, if I'm being honest. Did I have much? The last thing I had charted was that ascending channel action. We see the nice little breakdown off of the uptrend that you had, and then basically all I had formed here was a little bit of a uh, pretty much a megaphone action going on. That's basically what I'm looking at is a megaphone. If I'm looking at in terms of levels of how do I would particularly look to play this, is that I would particularly look for your breakdown here. You're watching for breakdown below that triple six. That's pretty much being a magnet to Tesla here. You want that breakdown under 666. You get the breakdown under the triple six, and I will be targeting what I have as demand zone down here, sitting between 654 to 655 would be my particular targets on the breakdown under the triple six. Otherwise, if we get for whatever reason we get a breakout here tomorrow, you're basically looking to see if you can get this to pop. Uh, that level to break out over would be over 677, and then you could potentially target the top of this megaphone, which is sitting at 693. So that would be about a near $20 move from current levels to the upside of this megaphone, and that's where I would expect that you're going to smack your head basically on this gap fill test at that 693, and we can see if we are going to enter into the gap fill. That's going to be completed at 697. All right. So that's pretty much the levels both ways. Not being biased about it, just playing both levels. Let's see what the market gives us tomorrow in terms of that, and you played off the levels. All right. But that's Tesla. Let's see what other comments you guys mentioned. My Amazon play played out perfectly this morning. I was somewhere we gapped down and I missed out. Amazon was just a beaut. I know that Amazon had hella weakness this morning, even when the market started to find a little bit of a bottoming action here that we saw intraday. Amazon pretty much held down until we saw the stronger momentum out of that V-shaped bottom on SPY. But that was one that had some gnarly, I want to say, relative weakness compared to the broader market that we saw in this dump earlier on. Sid, you're swinging Netflix July 15th puts. I actually do like that. I don't mind that at all. The best thing is that you gave yourself quite a bit of time on that one. That was actually one I was particularly going to be calling out today. I kind of missed the action a little bit. I caught it a little bit too late once I saw it. But that was a beautiful one to pretty much see. You had a nice little head and shoulders action as well intraday there. If you see the left, the head, and the right, but I caught it a little bit too late. I didn't expect the continuation was going to particularly be there once I caught it. But you wanted to see that one once it broke that 160, 176 half. That was just a beautiful flush in which you got about roughly about a $2 move out of that. But I do expect continuation out of this one. Uh, Continuation for the breakdown here. You want to see this break under 173 half. You break that 173 half. I don't think you particularly have any problems taking out the low from this morning. It's which pretty much is sitting at 170.30, and that should be a beautiful breakdown for you. All right. Let's see what else, Mr. Seriously. Pfizer had good price action as well. I think that was one that I was kind of watching a little bit earlier on. I did we get follow through? Yeah, we actually did get follow through on this one. So that was actually quite a beautiful one. Uh, Now, at what point you would have sought to pretty much go long on this one? You would have watched for basically breaking out in what I want to say is a little bit of a cup and handle formation that you had. Kind of looks a little bit, drop it just a bit. That was your little bit of your cup and handle formation as you see. You had a nice little cup and you had your retracement in which you wedged out before you got that gnarly breakout. So that was just a beautiful one. in terms of the formation that ended up playing out, in which case you were watching for your continuation. Your continuation on that breakout was watching this over that 52.06, and as you see, had a beautiful breakout, beautiful continuation up towards 53. Now tomorrow, if you're looking for continuation again on Pfizer, you're watching for the break over 52.70 to potentially take out that prior high from today, more so over that 52.70. Otherwise, you end up seeing a reversal, in which case you're looking for a breakdown under 53, under 52.13 for your breakdown, and you potentially end up retracing back to the downside. All right. Let's see. Okay, what's going on, bro? I just got here. Did you go over chips? That was actually one of the things I kind of touched basis on. I know that Micron actually had their earnings today. We saw that it was pretty much. I had spied down about $1 earlier on. It looks like it's kind of relatively holding up for a bit. As we see, it is bouncing. I was talking about Micron. Basically, you want to see it hold that $53 level going into tomorrow, but you have a beautiful breakdown down towards that $50 mark, pretty much on the penny. That $50 mark, it's also going to be acting as a mental number, not also the exact level to break down towards. But you potentially have maybe a $3 to $4 move depending how much it holds up here overnight, and that should be a beautiful breakdown and continuation to the downside. In which case, obviously, if Micron likely ends up leading tomorrow, it's likely going to be Nvidia and AMD following in suit in sympathy to that in the same sector here. As I will keep an eye on Nvidia. This is one that I've been watching for quite a while. We had the nice little megaphone action that was sitting, as you see. If I kind of just touch basis on that chart, we had the beautiful breakdown that we had this morning below that 153 level, and we went right towards the gap fill that we have. That kind of shows more on the daily chart, but you smacked right into that gap fill under that 149 level, and obviously you see the V-shaped recovery that you had with the broader market. And then, of course, you had the head and shoulders retraced. And so, what I'm going to be watching for is I want to see continuation back to the downside here. You break below this 150.25, and then I'm going to look to pretty much fill that entire gap to the downside. That's going to be completed down to 147. All right. So that's one I'm going to continue to keep an eye on tomorrow. And AMD probably a little bit of a similar situation. Why do I still have this channel? Okay, so I have a little bit of a descending channel action. I never got rid of it. We broke out of it. We had the rising, ascending, broadening wedge action, you want to say. We broke back actually back into the channel, and that's why I actually remained with the channel here. So I will be watching for continuation to the downside. You break under 75 half, and I can see this trading down towards 70, which is potentially your halfway back of this descending channel action. So you should end up breaking down below 75.50, and I can see this coming down towards 69, which is basically your halfway in between of this channel. So that's another one to keep an eye on in sympathy towards Micron's earnings, as it's likely going to end up bleeding out tomorrow. All right. But other than that, I think let's see what the market really truly wants to give us tomorrow. I think the downside would be favored. I would say that within this type of market environment, the amount of volatility that we had in both directions, not necessarily just down, I would not rule out the fact that maybe we do get a bounce tomorrow before a long weekend. So I'm not going to rule it out, but be prepared for both sides. I usually always say don't try to be too biased. Now, the other thing is that usually I would also say on the flip side of that is short whatever bounce you get. And that usually has particularly worked, except maybe the past few days that we've had this bear market rally. So let's see if maybe we get a bounce tomorrow. That might actually set up for the short opportunity in particular, as I was pretty much expecting at the opening bell here today. All right. But other than that, I will probably just wrap it up as it is right now, guys. As I went through quite a few takers here, I'll call it a day here. Let's see what Friday wants to give us for some Friday Lanos. So I will see you guys on live here tomorrow morning. But other than that, appreciate all of you guys joining. But I will see you again on live tomorrow morning. You guys have a great evening. Later, guys.